UAO students, listeners, welcome. I'm Unknown, and this is the Unpopular Anime Opinion Podcast's third episode, also known as the first episode of Spring 2021. So, Season 2, Episode 1. Now, in this episode, we will discuss what one would consider to be new anime, and how it compares to what one could consider to be old anime, with more of a focus on My Hero Academia. So I mentioned we, and what I mean by that is myself and Dicee, who I introduced in the previous episode, episode 2, and also got another guest. He goes by Astek, both good buddies of mine. But before we get on to that, I want to give you my take on why I think the new anime doesn't compare and shouldn't be compared to the old anime. Now obviously I'm fully aware you can compare anything. There are no rules, and it's all opinion, as I always say. But of course, I'm going to do it anyway. Now, you'll find a lot of people put down anime that came before, simply to lift up the anime of the present. Like, the thing that Boruto does that's better than Naruto is... Listen, first of all, there is nothing Boruto does that is better than Naruto. Let's make that clear. I personally feel that the current slate of shonen anime should not and can't be compared to their predecessors. Reason being, the systems changed. The landscapes changed. Animes like Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, they're not airing weekly. They're taking breaks, returning after a year in a specific season. Even with that release schedule, they're not comparable. They don't match up to their predecessors. They've got it easy. They were building on the foundations that the anime that came before them built. If you were to compare the stats of, say, Naruto has over 700 manga chapters, collectively had 26 seasons containing over 720 anime episodes, and it's been around since 1999, with the manga ending in 2014 and the anime ending in 2017. That's 15 years for a manga and 18 years collectively. Now, as big of a phenomenon that Demon Slayer is, it only has 205 manga chapters, and to date has only released one season containing 26 episodes. It started in 2016, with the manga ending in 2020, and the anime is ongoing. That's only 4 years for the manga compared to 15 years for Naruto's manga. So I honestly don't think there's a comparison. The foresight one must have to write a story spanning 15 years is insane, compared to only 4. Now, don't get me wrong, 4 years is amazing. Let me make this clear. I could not do that. Those mangaka are amazing regardless of what I'm saying. So when people are like, Demon Slayer is better than Dragon Ball Z and One Piece, I'm like, please, stop. Based on sales, it's hands down a juggernaut. It's made its mark, and it's top of the food chain. But in terms of world building, quit playing with me. Get the fuck out of here. Your predecessors set the foundations for what the current shonen anime and manga are based on. Now, on that note, that brings me to my next point with Naruto, One Piece, Dragon Ball, Bleach. With these, there wasn't really previous work where you would say, these animes are derivative of this anime, or this anime sounds similar to this anime, or this trope is taken from this. And that's why I say the new guys shouldn't be compared to the old guys. Because the older anime set the fucking standard. And I know people will and can easily say, oh, this anime may be inspired by the older one. However, they're making it better and improving on it. Please. Now I repeat, if you actually look close, you'll notice that a lot of the current work is derivative of their predecessors. They're not setting a standard, they're not breaking boundaries in their storytelling, unless you're Attack on Titan and crafting a story that's completely different. But I'm talking more on shonen content here. For example, there's usually a main trio, there's a character that usually has characteristics of, say, a Kakashi, Gojo, or Goku. I personally feel Black Clover is derivative of Bleach. For example, the captains and their squads, among other factors. I also personally feel Demon Slayer is derivative of a bunch of anime. I mean, when I first watched Demon Slayer, I immediately got Seraph of the End vibes. For example, they call them demons. However, their traits and characteristics are that of vampires. Muzan is essentially Dracula. For example, he's the one who turned every demon in that world. Only he can create up a vampire. Demons. The lead character Tanjiro loses his family, finds out one member is still alive, however, is now one of the vampires. Demons. And is now on a quest to return them back to human. This essentially reminded me of Seraph of the End, where the protagonist, Yurichio Hyakuya, loses his family, finds out one member is still alive, and is now one of the vampires, and is now on a quest to return them back to human. Essentially, I'm simply saying the main heavy hitters in the current crop of shonen are a derivative of the heavy hitters that came before. And for some reason, people are quick to jump on bandwagons and insult the predecessors and say the new ones are the best, simply because they are new, easily forgetting what they're doing is nothing new. It's just in different packaging. However, I do feel you should compare them against their current contemporaries. For example, Jujutsu Kaisen to Demon Slayer, or Black Clover to My Hero Academia. Just not the better work they're a derivative of. UAO students, listeners, it's that time. I'm going to let these two guys introduce themselves.
Welcome back, guys. It's Bash. If you've heard the previous episode, then you would have heard my introduction there, what type of animes I like and stuff. And we're back to record another episode, hopefully another interesting episode. And we've got a friend of us known as Aztek. Please introduce yourself, bro.
Hello, UAO students. My name is Aztek, and I'm going to be a recurring guest. I'm here to shake things up with my views as a new school anime head.
What would you say your current favorite anime is right now?
My top three anime right now have to be Naruto, Attack on Titan, and Demon Slayer. That's my top three right now. Yeah.
And I would say, Aztek, you're more of a shonen boy like me than any. I do know you have Attack on Titan there as one of your tops, but
definitely more shonen.
Now let's get into this. So, talking on the monologue that you just heard, I want to know what your take is on that, on terms of new anime versus old anime. And keep in mind, just to back up my point, Jujutsu Kaisen's mangaka, Gege Akutami, has openly come out and said that his work is inspired by specific shonen anime of the past.
No, very true. Very true. It's like, I agree a lot with your point, only because it's something you said before on Nonsense. It's like the old animes could only be fillers for the new animes. And like you said with Jujutsu, the manga has come out before and stated all his inspirations. And all his inspirations have been in Beach Bubbles, the old animes, have been Naruto, Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter, Bleach. And he's looked at all of them for inspiration. So pretty much, if you go back to any other new school anime, probably even My Hero and Black Clover, like you'd probably see where they've drawn inspiration from. It's a tricky question. I personally would say you can't have. I don't know. With like Attack on Titan, a lot of people can't compare that to anything.
Yeah.
So would you put that in a spot where you could say it's better than old anime?
Well, when it comes to that, I'm more comparing shonens because I feel like Attack on Titan definitely is unique and it kind of holds its own. Like you can't really compare it with anything.
Yeah.
So for me specifically, I do separate Attack on Titan from that. I
What do
mean,
you think, Aztec? Is like because when you see like My Hero or, for example, you said Demon Slayer, when you see those
Yeah.
compared to like the only old school anime you'd have is Naruto. Compared to that, how do you feel it contrasts against?
I mean, I agree with Unknown Sensei. I'm not gonna say 100%, but like 75%. I feel like most of these new animes are heavily inspired by old school animes, and like you said, my main point of reference is Naruto. And in all these new school animes, I can, being someone that's only into anime in the last say 2 years, I can see that these new animes take a lot of inspiration from Naruto.
see,
And to touch on what you said about Attack on Titan, although my catalog of anime that I've watched wouldn't be as large as the both of you guys, I do feel like out of the ones I've watched, I want to say that Attack on Titan is probably the one that's the most unique.
that's the thing. It's like I definitely wanted to hear your opinion on that because you are like would be like the newcomer out of us three in terms of like watching anime, and you just watched the entirety of Naruto. So
Yeah.
and since I know you've watched My Hero, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's my. I personally feel that's the new big three. Obviously, I'm not talking about sales, but like in terms of impact, I'd say that's definitely the new big three: My Hero, Demon Slayer, and Jujutsu Kaisen.
100%.
And that's why I definitely wanted to hear your opinion on that. Well, both of your opinions, but I definitely wanted to hear your opinion on that in terms of how do you feel it compares? Because you watched Demon Slayer, My Hero
Before
first, before you watched Naruto. So, in a sense, you would like technically favor My Hero and Demon Slayer because you watched it first. But then since post that you watched the entirety of Naruto, and it's like, how is that strong enough? What you watched, was that strong enough for you to be like, actually, like how do you feel? Are they better than one of the pillars which is Naruto?
Nah, in my opinion, I think Demon Slayer, Demon Slayer is in my top three. So I really enjoyed Demon Slayer, and I thought it was really good. My Hero Academia as well. I think it's a great anime, but I don't think that they could. I don't think they stood a chance compared to something like Naruto, because it's like, even though I watched both My Hero and Demon Slayer before I had watched Naruto, like going back and watching Naruto, I could still see like them pulling inspiration from Naruto. And even though going back and watching Naruto, I just felt like the stories had more depth to them. I felt like the series Naruto itself was given more time and attention and more time to the production of the anime. Although I feel like Demon Slayer and My Hero have like better animation and stuff, I feel like they were both rushed animes, and yeah, I don't think they can compare to something like Naruto.
What's your take on that, Dice?
It's very interesting actually, because before I had the take I said initially, I was trying to advocate for new anime, and it was pretty much me saying that they could be better if pound for pound they're going at each other, and you're like, no, this episode's better than that. But it's like you said before, if something's a pillar, how could you knock it down? You know what I'm saying? If the foundation was built and then you're building upon the foundation, how can you then go, oh, this foundation's better than that one? when
100%.
the new foundation's on top of the old foundation, you know, in terms of the old foundation supporting it. And yeah, it's like Aztec just said, when it comes down to it, Naruto feels way more thought out, whereas you have something as Demon Slayer where the pacing, yes, it's praised on its pacing, but the pacing feels way quicker than Naruto. You feel as if you're getting through the story, like you feel as if you can see the finish line with Demon Slayer, even though you've watched one season. You still feel like, oh yeah, I know where the finish line's at. But as you're watching Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, you're like, oh, you don't even know what else there is. When they reveal certain plot lines, you're like, oh god, you don't know what direction they're going into. And I feel that's what's kind of missing with a lot of new school anime, and the exception being My Hero, whereby it's structured in a way where the world can be built upon. Yeah, I think there's a lot of building blocks they could really take the My Hero universe where they want to, and they could probably do it well. But I couldn't say that for Demon Slayer, for example, and I can say it for Jujutsu Kaisen. But after reading the manga, I'm in 50-50 territory. You know?
Yeah.
What do you think about that unknown? It's like, do you
Yeah.
think they've set the pillars up to be like the old school pillars?
See that?
Jujutsu Kaisen, anyway.
Yeah. See with that, it's like, as I was saying, the landscape's changed. Like I do feel it's evident now in the current state of shonen that if your manga doesn't put up significant sales like early on, it'll simply get canceled before it's had a chance to warm up, and sometimes that lends itself to where I feel certain anime and manga are rushed, which is exactly what you guys have been saying. And because I feel the mangaka has that pressure to get as much in early on in order not to get canceled, I feel that kind of results in the writing coming across a little random and a little fast tracked. Because, talking on Jujutsu without any spoilers, but where the current manga is right now, which is what, chapter 146, it does feel pretty rushed and
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
not
Feels
as
like the pacing has taken a slight left turn. We will see in it, but it does feel like it's taken a slight left turn.
yeah, because you and I both agree that like there was a point where it really felt, obviously not to the scale of like One Piece or Naruto, but like it really felt like it was doing something, you know.
Yeah.
And then after a certain arc, it just kind of, I don't know, it felt a little random, you know.
Yeah.
But like,
we'll see what direction that arc goes.
yeah, we'll see.
It could end up being a great arc, but we'll see.
If I do feel like it feels rushed because I just feel the landscape's changed. Like manga are getting canceled like pretty early on if the sales aren't good enough. So yeah, I definitely feel the landscape's different, and it's not the same. It's not the same, which is why I don't feel like they should be compared. I don't feel like they should be compared at all. Definitely don't feel like they're good. They could be compared against each other, but for people to come out and say, oh, I mean, like I said, certain YouTubers are like, oh yeah, they're currently doing videos on Boruto and saying, oh, Boruto does this better than Naruto, and it's just like, come on.
Crazy talk, bro.
Yeah, it's like
Naruto doing anything better than Naruto.
It's like I know you're doing videos on Boruto, and I know you're trying to gas it up, but like, stop. There's no need to like tear down, the previous one just to try and make the current one sound good, because it's not better than Naruto. Not in the slightest. Not in any angle. It's just not. It's just not. So, yeah.
I got a question. I'm putting into this. Do you think it's one of them generational things whereby, because the younger generation are growing up on, let's say, the My Heroes, Demon Slayer, and Black Clovers, all the new animes, and then you've got the older generation that did grow up on Dragon Ball, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece. Do you think it's a thing whereby it's like the younger generation are looking at us like, no, that's old and the new stuff is the shit, and we're being the old heads by being like, oh no, the Naruto's and the Dragon Balls are the greatest things in life. Pretty much like music. You hear music nowadays, and people are like, oh no, the Tupacs and the Biggies were the best people. You know, they were the best at rapping and stuff, and then the current people can't test them. Do you think it's something to do with that?
Do you know what my take on that is? My take on that is, like, me personally, I'll tell you the reason why it took me so long to go back and watch Naruto is because of how old it was and how the anime style was and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So going off what you're saying, it makes sense. I could see it being something like that where the new school and this younger generation is not really interested in the story and stuff, because remember, you have to want to watch the anime, or the anime trailers or whatever have to intrigue you, and you have to want to come in and actually sit through a couple episodes and get the ball rolling. Whereas these new animes have these crazy trailers, beautiful animation. Like, just imagine seeing a trailer and you see a crazy fight scene. I guess the same could be said for an old school anime as well. But I feel like the younger generation is more drawn to the new school animation and the new school anime than it is.
And flash glitch and stuff.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
That's a great point in my opinion. What do you think, Unknown?
Yeah, to be honest, we're on the same page, because I agree. It's like, it's based on what it is that you currently sort of see in your sort of view, and a lot of people won't go back and watch, the previous ones that other people talk about. I mean, with Naruto, it's like, what, over 700 episodes. Who's gonna do that? I mean, with Aztec, he actually took the time to, like, watch the whole thing all over again. But if he didn't, he would have been saying, My Hero, Demon Slayer, etc. Like, those are the best, right?
Yeah.
But if you didn't,
which I was,
exactly.
If I'm being honest, I was for a long time. I was screaming, My Hero, Demon Slayer. I was screaming that those were the best. There was another one as well. What was my big three, my top three before?
Fire Force?
Not Fire Force. Something else, and something that definitely did not deserve a top three spot. But
that's hilarious.
Definitely, that's like, I remember doing that. I remember screaming, "Oh, there's nothing is better than My Hero Academia. Nothing is better than Demon Slayer. Like, it's crazy." So I definitely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, it is a case of, like, I mean, even with, like, even with me with One Piece. Now, Dice. With One Piece, that's your jam, that's your thing. But even with me, I'm like, I can't go back and watch it. I'm really shit at, like, binging things, so I can't go back and watch, what is it, like, over 900 episodes right now. So I cannot do that. So it's like, I'm not gonna go back and watch One Piece just to find out. So I'm never really gonna know. So I would assume that, like, some people would still be like, well, I'm not gonna watch Naruto. I'm not gonna go back and find out what it is. It's too many episodes. Can't be bothered. With Demon Slayer, it's only one season. It's like 26 episodes. With My Hero, it's like 5 seasons. We're currently in the 5th season. So those things are pretty easy to catch up on by comparison. So it's like, yeah. With that being said, it's like, you're not really gonna be bothered. So I would assume that, like, the sort of newer generation is like, well, that's old. That's old.
Yeah, that's the old shit. I need to watch it. Pretty much, I agree with your guys' statements too.
But
the fact you see something, it's like the Detective Conan, for example.
Yeah.
last episode, someone requested or asked our thoughts on that,
Yeah.
and it's one of them ones where you look at it and it's like, oh, that's a daunting task.
Yeah.
Because I watched the One Piece when I was young, had time on my hands, and trying to watch One Piece now, if you told me 1,000 episodes, but I'd look at you like, nah, no, thank you. A whole 1,000 episodes, no thanks, no thanks.
Nah, that's crazy.
But considering if we were in a lockdown, maybe, but
I remember looking at Naruto and seeing 700 episodes and thinking to myself, there's no way I can do this. And even if I did do this, it would take me months. And then, as Unknown knows, I started, and then I probably got back to him in like a week or two, and I was already on episode 300 and something. So it was one of those ones where it looked like a chore when you're just looking at the episodes and looking at the numbers. But once you start, that's it.
Like, the immersion that takes you, man.
See,
I think I was at least doing like 10, 20 episodes in like 2 days for One Piece.
Something crazy like that.
It's like that. I get when the story is that good, like Naruto. Yeah.
Here's the thing on the topic of the current sort of generation and their view on anime now to the older ones. I've seen people say that, like, I've heard comments say like Black Clover was better than ... And it's like I remember I heard a comment that saying that Black Clover was better than Naruto. Or no, remember I was talking to you about it, Dice, and there was someone that said that they feel like Asta is better than Naruto as a character.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what? And and she was saying how she could watch Black Clover but couldn't get into Naruto. And I remember thinking, that is insane. Because it's like, you have no idea. Like, it feels like the standard that you're getting into is at a weaker quality, and you wouldn't know a higher level of quality anime unless you backtrack. Because if you go off Black Clover and you say that's great, then you really don't know
what greatness is.
Yeah, you don't know. It's like, for example, it's like in terms of like the writing, the foresight that I feel that the things like Naruto and Bleach and One Piece have compared to Black Clover, for example. It's like with Black Clover, they had a character, a vice captain no less, come out of nowhere and be like, oh hey, I'm the vice captain of your squad, and I've been the vice captain all this time. I just never been around, and you didn't know about it. And it's like what? As of this recording, like the manga is currently ongoing, and the anime has ended it with a total of like 170 episodes, and only 170 episodes, and only in episode 168 did they introduce a vice captain that has been the vice captain of a squad since its inception, and the squad has been focused on since episode 6. So that's episode 6, and only in episode 168 do they highlight a vice captain of their squad. And it's like, where the hell did that come from? Like that feels like you just threw that in. That didn't feel like you like saw that from the beginning, and you just like, that just felt like you just, there isn't really that foresight. I don't, with Bleach, I feel Black Clover is derivative of Bleach, and it's like, you really think, 168 episodes in, we're finally gonna see the vice captain of Kenpachi's squad, and his vice captain's that little girl with the pink hair, right? If I recall. We know she's been the vice captain since the moment we saw his squad, So it's not like they just threw that in like how many episodes later. She's been there. And you didn't need to be like, oh yeah, it's... And I get how they did it, but it feels... it feels thrown in. And it's like... Another...
improv.
Yeah, like you just... Yeah, And another example on that same thing with Black Clover, it's like how many chapters and episodes in you suddenly change this male silent giant of a character into a scared shy female. And I'm referring to the character called Gray.
Yeah.
That felt like the mangaka polled the audience about who their favorite characters were, and then found out that no one liked that character, so he changed, this character mid-story and turned him into this shy girl. And it's like, where's that foresight? Like, you should have known where you wanted to go with this big guy from the beginning. And then or all of a sudden you find out this character isn't that popular, and then it's just like, you know what, let me try and change it into this shy girl that has this amazing power. And I'm pretty sure people are going to like this character more. Because I really just don't know where I'm going with this guy. So with that, you don't. These are things you never felt from reading or watching, say, a Naruto or a One Piece. And obviously, like Dice, um, you can talk on that because you've watched One Piece, but you've never watched the pillars and been like, where did that come from?
Yeah, where did this come from? Like, where did this villain just pop out of nowhere from? Or where did this team member come from? Very true. Like, in One Piece, in even Dragon Ball, I think in Dragon Ball as well, it's like, there's a lot of foreshadowing. A lot of foreshadowing. Before you see a character, there's a build up to that character, you know? There's a build up, like, you've got Kami's Tower, but before you got Kami's Tower, you got Korin and Yajirobe. You got them in the middle there. So I climbed the tower, and he's in that room. Goku's in that room, and he's like, looking around, and then he meets Korin's cat for the first time. It's not just out of the blue, you know. It's not just a character that was there, and then he changed into a cat anywhere, like in Black Clover, whereby he had Grey, and he changes into a girl, but he was a big lad the whole time. Yeah. But I think it's a case of how everything's consumed these days, you know? Like, you have Black Clover, and it's very fast paced. Black Clover's pacing is like chop chop. You know, it's like so quick. But I think it's a case of how people consume anime and manga right now. Back then they took their time on their craft, but now I feel like they are taking their time, but they're just trying to get a good story out there straight away. A good story with some good characters, but that can appeal to a mass audience straight away. So they could just get the money flowing, you know.
And that's why I just on a comparison level, that's why you can't compare the current crop to the old school, because it's like quality, time spent with versus like sort of a rushed derivative version of his predecessors. And Dice, you started reading the Naruto manga, and what are the stuff that you noticed? Remember, you noticed something that was in the very early chapters.
Oh yeah. The biggest thing I've noticed, and I said it about One Piece as well to you, unknown sensei, is that it's the foreshadowing. Like, for anyone that knows Naruto, anyone that knows One Piece, I'll use the Naruto example. In the manga, you get a foreshadowing of the legendary Sani training, and that's not really a spoiler, is it?
Nah, but, not at this stage.
Yeah, because if you don't know who they are, you get what I'm saying. But if you see that before, you see that in the chapter, I think it was chapter 4.
Yeah.
Of the Naruto manga, you see a foreshadowing of something that's going to happen years down the line, like in Naruto in the manga, in both the manga and the anime. And I feel with the new school, what have I read recently? I've read Demon Slayer. I'm reading Demon Slayer. I don't see that same type of foreshadowing whereby they have a character that's like what the character is going to become way beforehand. It's not planned out already. It feels more like they're going with the flow, and then they're writing it as they're taking steps, you know?
See,
as they're taking steps forward, like weekly.
See, and Demon Slayer, I wanted to elaborate more on the monologue. Aztec, you can chime in on this as well, because I feel, and I was telling Dice this, I feel Demon Slayer doesn't really have world building. I mean, it's crazy because everyone's jumping on bandwagons. Everyone's gassing up Demon Slayer and talk. Listen. Demon Slayer is good. I'm not saying I'm not insult. I'm not. I don't. I'm not saying I don't like it. I do like it. Demon Slayer is good. I just feel it's overrated. I feel like people are gassing it like way too much. I feel it's overrated because it doesn't have it doesn't have good world building, and it feels like a story that you know where it's gonna go. It's like, okay, there's this, like I said, me, I feel it's derivative of Seraph at the end, but whatever. So it's like, you got this the main guy, the trio, and then you got the trio, and then you got the big main Dracula guy, Muzan, and then you've got his henchman, which is a normal trope, in shonen. But it feels like, okay, cool. That once basically he's gonna go from person to person, and they're gonna face off against the upper moons individually. Once they get through to the upper moons, and they get through them all, face off against Muzan, and then that's it. That's it. Like, it feels like that's a quick just elimination sort of storyline, sort of structure. And with Dice, I'm currently reading the Demon Slayer manga, and I'm on chapter 105, and I'm pretty sure the manga ends at what, 205. So I'm 100 chapters away, and so far it hasn't proved me wrong. And I know, Dice, you're a lot further than me. You're like 155, isn't it?
150, yeah, 155, 56.
Yeah, and it's like, to me, so far, it just, if you compare it to something like Naruto, I keep going back to Naruto, but if you compare it to something like Naruto, every character has, I've always said, I feel like every character in Naruto can essentially have their own spin-off based on their village, based on their clan, whereas like with Demon Slayer, I just feel it's quick, it doesn't have the depth to it with like, what do you what do you feel on that, Aztec?
I feel like Demon Slayer has next to none, if any, um, world building. Like, so,
Well,
it's compared to something like, again, like you said, we keep going back to Naruto, but compared to Naruto, where you have the different villages, the lord, the feudal lords, like there's so many different places, and like the world is very vast. Like, even something like My Hero Academia, they begin in Tokyo, but then like you find out that All Might was in Europe, and do you know what I mean? Like, in Demon Slayer, I feel like Demon Slayer, we was literally jumping from place to place, and with no real explanation about how we got here or why we're here. It just had to. It just, as long as it made sense for the story, for him to fight, Kanjiro to fight someone in this specific area, they just done it. I feel like Demon Slayer doesn't have even close to as much world building as other animes.
Because
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's all opinion. It is what it is. But I just feel like so many people are just jumping on a bandwagon. I literally just watched a review on YouTube of a known like movie review. He's got like over 1 million subscribers, and he was just singing the movie like Mugen Train. He was singing its praises, and it was just like, I was listening to it, and I was just like, really, like, really. I feel like people are getting paid to just say how great it is, rather than saying the obvious sort of
Mm.
flaws. And there's nothing. Like I said, I think it's great. I think it's a good. I think it's good. I just don't think it's worth. Sales wise, it's doing its thing. It's killing the game, but like,
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, even in terms of like the writing of what we're talking about with the current crop, let's just go to Jujutsu Kaisen, because with Jujutsu Kaisen, as I was talking to Dice about, we are more than 144 manga chapters in. More than
Mhm.
144 manga chapters in. And we still don't really know anything about Yuji Itadori, who's the protagonist. We know that we've only had one season so far, and I'm not gonna judge it on the anime's first season, because it is what it is. But based on where it is with the manga, we know nothing about Yuji Itadori, nothing, and that's over 144 chapters in. How is that even possible? Like, what kind of writing is that? Imagine if you watched Naruto
yeah.
or read Naruto, or like I said, I can't talk on One Piece, But imagine if you read Naruto and you saw over 144 chapters in and you knew nothing about Naruto. By this stage, you still knew nothing about him, and it's like, what? And that actually kind of similar to Black Clover. I mean, what is it? 100 chapter one. No, anime episode what 168, 69, maybe it was 170. I think it was the final episode of the anime. That's when you finally get some sort of highlight on Asta's backstory, and it's like 170 episodes in, and that's when you get a backstory of Asta's, Asta's life. Is, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it's just the way they're writing it in terms of how it's written. Like, for example, you would say, unknown sense, say when it comes down to Seven Deadly Sins, you would say that the way it's written is done intentionally, whereby you get thrown straight into the middle of Seven Deadly Sins, whereby Meliodas and the other sins are already established.
Yeah.
So you don't really get their backstory. Do you think Jujutsu Kaisen's trying to take that approach, the manga of Jujutsu Kaisen trying to take that approach, whereby he's not telling us the story behind Itadori, and we just have to kind of wait for it. And then when we get it, we'll be like, oh, wow, or it would be an element of surprise.
Okay.
When we do get his backstory.
All right, that's actually a really good point. That's a good point. All right, so I did read, obviously, Seven Deadly Sins. The manga's finished, and now they're on Four Nights of the Apocalypse, which is the sequel. So I have read all of Seven Deadly Sins manga, and in terms of the anime, I mean, the first season we got a little bit of Bond's backstory. I think a little bit of King's and Elaine's. But with Meliodas, his backstory was deliberately. Thing is, his backstory was deliberately kept more of a secret, even until near the end. But that the way that was written, it kind of made sense. Like you said, I mean, we was introduced to them at an age where they was already established, But with Yuji Itadori, we was introduced to him before he even knew anything about the world, and it's like, if you're the protagonist, the thing is, it's like, if you're the protagonist, it's kind of important for us, the audience, to sort of connect with you.
100%.
By
I
giving.
I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying on no. When you're making your points, but it's true with, I think, the double-edged sword of how you tackle what Jujutsu Kaisen is without telling us backstory on Itadori for a long time, it makes it hard to
connect.
There we go. It makes it very hard to connect with Itadori as a character. Because I'll already put my hand up and say Megumi is one of my favorite characters, because I feel like I can connect with him a bit more. You see. Well, in the manga as well, you see a bit of his backstory,
Yeah.
And you have a reason. Like, I think he has a solidified reason to be a jiu-jitsu sorcerer. Whereby, with Itadori, his reasons to sit is a good reason, but it doesn't feel like it's been cemented yet. So it's more of just like an idea. Even though it got him into the school, it still feels like an idea to me. It's like, whereby Megumi has that person you can see in his head that he needs to be saving, You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or he's trying to achieve something for. Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword the way the manga decided to approach the writing of Jujutsu Kaisen. But I think it's like you said with Seven Deadly Sins. I think maybe he might just be trying to take that approach as well. So it's two ways.
But here's
I guess.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, it was all right. Here's the thing with Seven Deadly Sins. I really want to defend Seven Deadly Sins, because it's like with Seven Deadly Sins, it was known that Meliodas' backstory was hidden. Like everyone knew it was a mystery. Like it wasn't a secret. Everyone was like, who are you really? Like, what is it? Season 2, I think it was, in the anime, where King was like, who are you? Are you Are you evil or are you? You know, I think it was
Yeah.
season. I think it was season 2, where it feels like with Jujutsu, it just avoids it. Like, if anybody, it just avoids it in the sense of in terms of its writing, it just doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, I feel because the reason why I posed that question, the reason why that idea came to mind is because of how the grandpa kind of alludes to his family
Yeah,
before he passes in jiu-jitsu.
yeah.
And it's one of them ones where he's like, it's a story, not himself, that's like, no, he doesn't want to know. So I feel like that allusion to, there's a family behind this story is what I guess the manga wants us to grab onto. Just wait
See,
for the
here's
moment he's to reveal
yeah.
something big. You know?
Like here's the thing. That's true, but that was like first chapter, first episode, and now we're over 144 chapters in, and still nothing. Or we're touching on it, but in terms of Yuji, even if we're not talking about his backstory, but his character, in terms of him, we still.
Yeah, his character.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I mean, what do you feel? I mean, you how far are you on Jujutsu Aztec? Because I know you watch it in dub, so I don't know if you're.
Yeah, I watch it in dub. I'm only 3 episodes in.
What's going on? Oh, shit.
I'm only 3 episodes in, so
Wait. See, it's a good thing we haven't said anything crazy.
yeah, but nah, but you know me, I'm a very curious guy, so spoilers don't really it's not really something that bothers me. Sometimes I go searching for if I have a question or I'm curious about something, I'll go searching for the answer and then I'll watch it in anime. But hearing you guys talk on how it's similar to Seven Deadly Sins,
No,
it's
no.
putting me off.
No. Wait. Yeah, no, because you listeners, Aztec isn't fond of Seven Deadly Sins, which I disagree with. I'm like, man, you're not giving it a shot. But
Don't even get me
that's
started on
that's
Seven Deadly
another.
Sins.
But the thing is, it's not similar to Seven Deadly Sins. Not. I mean, that's not what I don't feel that's what Dice was trying to say.
No.
It's it's
But yeah, like to give a quick
all right.
it's a
Wait.
conversation for another time. But
Yeah, wait. Let me quickly. I just quickly have to defend something. The thing is with Seven Deadly Sins, is it throws you in the middle, and
Yeah.
you find out about the things that happened prior as we're moving forward, and that's just the way that's just the way it's written. Whereas Jujutsu isn't like that. It's not. We're not thrown in the middle. We're still starting from technically the beginning of Yuji's journey, and we by now we just still don't know much about him. Whereas with Seven Deadly Sins, we are thrown in the middle, and then we're finding out what happened up that led up to that point as we're going forward, and then we get to the present, and then we keep going, and then we sort of keep going. So it's not. It definitely is written differently. It's just we're starting with Yuji in the beginning, and we still don't know much about him as It feels like we know the least about Yuji out of what?
most of the characters.
Yeah, most of the characters, and it's like he's the lead. How is that even possible? It doesn't even. But sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry about that, man.
No worries. That's you basically summed up what I was gonna say. I was just gonna say that how my issue with Seven Deadly Sins is that we're thrown right into the middle, and the way I watch anime and the kind of anime I watch, I like to see and like see the protagonist's story and journey from the beginning and watch them become who they are or what they're meant to be. And with Seven Deadly Sins, like you said, we start in the middle and we find out all this stuff after. But with Jiu-Jitsu, although, like hearing what you guys said, although it's clear that you don't know too much about the main protagonist, I would say till later, but it seems like up until now we still haven't got the information. But he still starts his journey from the beginning of like where he's not really, he doesn't really know about this world of jiu-jitsu. He doesn't know it exists, and then as he comes into it, then we go on the journey with him as he's learning and as he's getting to his end goal.
What you're saying does make sense, right? Like that I understand. I just feel, obviously for me, I feel like Jujutsu does that not as well as it could. Because I get what you're saying. You know, we're using the protagonist as an avenue for us to understand the world that we're being introduced to.
Mm-hmm.
And as they find out, we find out, right?
Yeah.
It's just with Jujutsu, I feel like we do find out about the world. Yeah, it's not necessarily through him. It's like as it's going on, yeah, we're finding out about the world, but we don't know anything about him. But no, I do get what you're saying. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I agree. Now, listeners, we're at that point. We're at that point now, finally, where we're going to talk about My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is an anime that takes place in a world where about 80% of the population has some kind of superpower called a quirk. The origin of these superpowers has never been identified, and after a while it became the norm. The world became a superhuman society, which inevitably gave rise to abilities being misused. As a result, to combat the chaos, the profession of hero was created. A system was put in place where heroes would operate alongside emergency services, and schools were built to raise heroes to oppose villains in their crimes. We essentially follow the protagonist, Izuku Midoriya, aka Deku, who is a student at the most prestigious school, UAO, in Japan, where he works towards his dream of becoming the number one hero. So, with My Hero Academia, I personally feel like it's the only current anime that is written and structured in a similar way to the predecessors. Like, it really has those elements in there where things are easily set up to be ongoing for a while. So, how do you guys feel My Hero Academia compares to its contemporaries like Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer and Black Clover, Tokyo Revengers? But that just started, so.
My Academia is my favorite out of the ones listed. I feel like My Hero Academia. I like the world building. I feel like it has room to go, room to grow. I really like the characters, and I feel like some of the storylines and the arcs we've had so far, like, were amazing, and I'm excited to see where we go in season 5.
Oh yeah, because you're not. Are you up to date with the manga? Oh,
With
I'll
My Hero.
yeah. Without saying anything, but are you up to date?
No, I'm not up to date. No,
Okay.
I stopped at that point.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Dice, I know you're not up to date, which is why I'm like, okay. What's your take on how it compares? My Hero Academia compares to its contemporaries in terms of what it is what it is you know about the story so far.
Yeah, pretty much. I said this to you before, knowing it's like My Hero Academia set itself up to be in a very similar position to the greats like One Piece and Naruto, whereby it's not written very close-ended. Like, for example, Demon Slayer to me feels very close-ended, and like you explained before, it's like you feel as if you know where the story of Demon Slayer is heading.
Yeah.
And for My Hero, although you've been given a heads up on how the story is going to end, it still feels like they can really take that world into any direction.
Yeah.
If it was you can follow one character, for example, Shoto, one of my favorite characters from the show, you could take that character and follow his story, and then you can see some interesting outcomes, and you can really follow his emotions through everything that's going on. Whereby I feel if you did that with not to bully Demon Slayer, but if you did that with Demon Slayer, you probably wouldn't get far. You probably would. You feel like you can only really follow Tanjiro in Demon Slayer,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and in terms of like the world building itself, it's like you said previously in the monologue, you have My Hero. They're technically the emergency services of the world.
Yeah.
You know, they're technically the firefighters, the police officers, the investigators, the builders. You know, they tackle everything, and you can easily have an off-key arc whereby they could be talking about an industry going down and how villains maybe fucking up the building industry or the inventive industry to try and take over the world. You can fully go down the story path like that with My Hero, and I think that's what makes it so great. It's like you don't know when it can end. Yeah, we know, like I said, if you watch the first episode, you know what direction it's going to, what the ending will be, but you don't know how they're going to get there, especially with the introduction of the quirks, and we don't yet know how every quirk originated, you know, or where they came from to make the whole world 80% of the population of the world have quirks and the left other 20% don't. We don't know how that's unfolded or came to life.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to My Hero as the new big three, I definitely put it as the number one. You know, if you list the big three, the new era big three was Jujutsu Kaisen, Black Clover, and My Hero, or for some people, Demon Slayer, Black Clover, and My Hero. Maybe remove Black Clover or whatever. But if that's your big three, I think My Hero will be a number one.
I definitely feel. I mean, with My Hero, that's one of the animes where I feel it easily could have a time skip because as it's introduced in the very first episode, we hear Deku, we hear his voiceover as an adult. He's already the number one hero. That's what he's stating. He's already saying that from the beginning. So, I feel this is an anime where it's like it can have that time skip. It can delve into and have like a My Hero Shippuden where it has that section where they're all older and we see their adventures. Like right now we're in the younger period, and we could easily just eventually have that time skip and then have it continue for a whole nother how many years of when they're older. And I mean, I was telling you this, Dice, that I don't think I've seen an anime with more adult fan art than My Hero. Like, I think I've seen the most fan art of when they're older with the My Hero characters than I have with any anime. So it's something that even the fans want and continue to sort of imagine. But I really hope that the mangaka goes that far and doesn't, shortchange us. They really can sort of just keep going. And especially with what Astek said earlier, how they did focus on how All Might went to the Europe and went to the US, and it's like if there's a big world that they can easily touch on, and they really set that up. They really set that up. It doesn't feel like it's that straight line like Demon Slayer, where it's like, okay, let me just defeat his subordinates and then get to Muzan, story done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really I do think Demon Slayer is overrated because it's just pretty simple. It's good, but it's pretty simple. But My Hero definitely, I feel it has the most depth out of all of them, and it's the best written, and the most. That reminds me of like the predecessors.
For a fact, I think My Hero is, and I think even if it was back then when like Naruto and stuff was releasing,
it would hold it.
My Hero could easily be a weekly anime without the season, without the need of season 1 and season 2.
It's funny you said that. It's funny you said that because I just thought that I honestly feel it could hold its own. If it came out during the same time as Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, I'm not saying it'll be better than Naruto, One Piece, or Bleach. Although Bleach did dip, but anyway. But I feel it can still hold its own. I feel like it has enough of its own identity to be able to hold its own against all those guys.
I feel like My Hero Academia has all the ingredients to be a great.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
whether it was made then,
Mm.
and then we'll be talking about it now,
Yeah.
or now
Yeah.
and in the future,
Yeah.
becoming a great and making its way into the Hall of Fame in the future.
No, 100%. I think the torch has been passed nicely to My Hero.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting what you just said, Unknown, about, like, because it made me think, back to the question we posed before, the pillars. Like, My Hero, if you insert it with the old big three, how well would it do? And I think some people will be willing to argue that My Hero would overtake Bleach, for example. I think some people will, just because of the dip that Bleach did suffer in. I haven't watched full of Bleach, but I do know there's a dip at one point, and a lot of people always point that out. Whereby with My Hero, did you say it dipped at any point, like proper as bad as Bleach?
Nah, I don't think it dips. I don't think it dips personally.
I
Yeah, there
don't
we
think
go.
so.
So it would be a very interesting landscape if it did come out back then. I wouldn't be surprised if people were like, yeah, the big three was One Piece, My Hero, and Naruto.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like it could work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. And of course though, sales wise, that is not what that's not what it's funny because like we can see it, but in terms of sales, Demon Slayer is the thing that's running shit, and it's you know, it is what it is. I don't understand it too tough, but I mean listen, I've read, and so have, you know, I've read, and so have you, Dice. We've read the Mugen Train section, and it's not all that. You know, I mean, the movie is making crazy, like it's like the biggest. You know, what is it? It's taken the most money. It's the highest grossing film in Japan, right? And
Mm.
I've read that section. It's it's not all that. You know, it's cool, but does it deserve to be the highest grossing film? You know, in Japan,
Well, I
like
guess it's the difference, isn't it, between watching and reading? Because obviously, like we said before, the animation was heightened
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
They probably made it so that the production and everything's just so amazing. But
yeah.
I haven't seen the movie yet, and I feel what plays the biggest part is when people say, "Oh, that's an emotional scene" or whatever. You have the score playing, you have the actual animation playing, and everything. Whereas when we're reading it in the manga, we don't get none of that extra, heightened emotion from a score or from the animation being some type of way. So I think that's probably why the movie grosses so much. It's like those emotional bits could be heightened so much in anime, whereby in manga it's not as heightened. Especially the fight scenes are probably looking 10 times more amazing in anime than it is in the manga. So I think that's probably what's propelling the movie and getting all these critics to give it higher praise. You get?
I just feel like people are jumping on bandwagons and being like, it's emotional, and it's like, did you watch Your Name? Like, that's a movie called Your Name. That's one of my favorite films. Oh, and that is phenomenal. And I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, Demon Slayer is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. It does feel like I'm just shitting on it for this whole thing. That's why I constantly have to be like, I do think Demon Slayer is good. I just think it's overrated. But bringing it back to My Hero Academia, here's something that I wanted to talk about: the criticism that Deku gets from a lot of people, and that is that he cries a lot. Now, my take on that is I don't feel like he's a crybaby. I don't even feel like he's a wuss or anything or any sort of term that makes him seem like he's a baby, because it's like, you know, when you first see him crying as a kid, he's exactly that, a kid wanting to be a hero, you know, being told that he has no quirk and he needs to think of another career path. And it's just like, yeah, you tell that to like I don't know how old he was, we tell that to like a kid. The crying is justified, you know. And he gets a little older, and in that moment when he finally receives affirmation from someone he admires the most in the world, and they say you can become a hero, that is huge. That is a a moment that is extremely emotional, and crying in that moment is unbelievably justified to me, in my eyes, because he didn't have a quirk. He was told he couldn't do it as a child. When he found out he didn't have a quirk, even his mom's was like, I'm sorry. Didn't give him encouragement. And then that one person that he looks up to in the entire world is standing right in front of him. That's crazy in itself. That same person tells him that you can become what you have always wanted to become. And that is just a huge statement. So when you finally hear that, it's like, that's should make you cry. So to me, that moment of him crying, justified. That was another justified moment. And then in general with him and having sort of empathy for his enemies, my answer to that is simple. He's a hero. The first aim for a hero, if you arrive on the scene, is to subdue and detain and hopefully reform your enemies. You're not trying to kill them or anything like that. So, when it comes to him having empathy for who he fights, it's like he is a hero. That is what you're supposed to have. You're not supposed to kill them or have the intention to kill them. They're not demons. If they were demons, it's like, yeah, I can understand why you're meant to kill them because they're demons. But if they're human, I'm getting a little dig in there, but if they're human and, they're villains, you're meant to have empathy. You're meant to try and subdue them. You're meant to try and detain them. And you're meant to try and hopefully reform them. But you're not supposed to go in with killer intent. So with him having that energy, it makes sense because he's a hero. That's what you're supposed to do. So that's my take on Deku. That's my take on Deku and me trying to defend all the negative things that people say about his character, about him being quite soft or whatever you want to.
Astek, what do you think about Dicee? What's your take on him? Do you think he cries a lot?
Here, I agree with Unknown Sensei, but I also disagree because I feel like everything you explained is what makes him a crybaby. Do you understand? Like, I understand what you're saying, like, as in, it's justified. I understand about the whole All Might acknowledging him and these things. I hear where you're coming from, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he's just an emotional character. And don't get me wrong, I love Deku. Like, I think Deku is a sick character, but I do think that he was written that way. He was written to be an emotional mess and a crybaby, but I think that is the beauty of his character development. Like, so now in season 4, when we're seeing Deku stand up for himself and he's not taking no more nonsense, and he's seeing that transition from him being a crybaby to now going Super Saiyan. Yeah, I think that there's something beautiful about that. But I do feel I don't feel like he's a crybaby anymore, and I don't feel like he's a wuss. I wouldn't even say wuss. I would just say crybaby. I don't feel like he's a crybaby anymore, but I feel like he was to begin with. He was, and although some of the moments were justifiable, I feel like it was part of his character. Like, he had to start off that way for him to get to where he is now. Yeah, 100%. But he's definitely a crybaby. Was.
Yeah. wait. Before you say your piece, Dice, that's actually something that I just in my head before you said it. I was like, yeah, that's actually a good point, because he's not a crybaby anymore. Like, he was at a point. And then that's why I went into the empathy section, because now it's just like, now he just has empathy for his enemies, but he doesn't cry.
Yeah.
You don't really see him cry. But anyway, sorry.
When does Deku have empathy for his enemies? Like, I'm trying to remember a moment, but I can't. I don't think he really does.
Okay,
I think in terms of him caring for people he's saving, definitely he has so much empathy and sympathy towards people he wants to save and saving the world, and maybe his fellow colleagues and classmates. But I can't remember a time when he was like empathetic towards or sympathetic towards.
Actually, no, you're right. Actually, that's that statement is actually more of a statement referring to the current manga. So I guess I shouldn't have. So yeah,
Oh, fair
that's
enough.
that's more of a future.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, that's more of a
Yeah,
future
that's more
statement.
foreshadowing. Or
Yeah. So apologies.
but as Aztec said, I kind of agree with what you're saying. It's like for me, it's the fact that he visibly is always crying, you know,
Was
and or was. Does he cry in season 4? I don't. I think he does. But it's like as he's using his abilities and doing his stuff, like you know what I'm saying. It's just the tears, the physical tears. Like as soon as I hear Deku, I can picture the moment of like All Might in the computer screen, and he's sitting there as a kid, just waving his head up and down, but he's got tears down his face, you know.
he's a kid.
And like it's cute, it's true, it's cute, and I understand. Don't get it twisted. I understand why he's crying. I get it. I understand why he's crying, but it's the fact that he's crying is what makes him a crybaby. You get it's the fact that he's visibly just bawling his eyes out. A lot of people handle emotions differently, and some probably wouldn't cry at that, and some would. But I think that's the important bit is the fact that he's physically crying. You don't get a lot of characters that are just physically bawling their eyes out multiple times in a season. And as Aztec said, it's probably part of his character development. Him getting into that point of right now in season 4, he's more on it. He's more just has to get this done, and he's put his emotions a bit behind him. You know, he doesn't wear it so visibly on his face. But that's why I think a lot of people go with the notation of Deku being a crybaby just because of how much he wears it on his face. It's not the fact that they don't sympathize with Deku or empathize with him either. Just I think he just wears it on his face so big.
I tell you who cries. This is a quick off topic, but I tell you who cries a lot and is only like what 3 episodes in Tokyo Revengers. The lead character, I think his name's Takamichi. He cries a lot, but yeah. But it's and he literally does cry. Like he
just keep falling.
he cried. So we'll see if like the narrative out there, if people say that he's a crybaby because he cries a lot, like legitimately cries. So and it's funny, but like no, I don't see no one say he's a crybaby. But you know, let's see. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so listeners, we asked on Twitter and Instagram for people to send in voice messages or answer questions. And we have 2 voice messages that we're going to play. One from Ash Ackerman and another from Ryder. The one we're about to play is from Ash Ackerman, and here it is.
Hey, it's Ash Ackerman. I just wanted to know what's your favourite season of My Hero so far and why? Thank you. Bye.
So Ash Ackerman just asked, what's your favorite My Hero Academia season and why? My favorite My Hero Academia season is season 3. My reasons for that is season 3 has Muscular versus Deku, which to me was an amazing moment. I just love that moment. It has All Might versus All for One. It has Bakugo getting captured and having a pivotal moment where he's put in a position where it's join us or die in terms of the League of Villains. And he stands his ground and proves that he is a hero and has always wanted to be a hero, basically just as much as Deku. That was a big moment because he was up against 8 members of the League of Villains by himself, not knowing if he was going to get rescued at that specific moment, but he was ready to fight to the death and not join them. And I felt that was a moment for his character and showing us who he really is.
Yeah, 100%.
Also,
yeah, 100%.
I felt like that moment as well. Season 3 is like a lot of people thought that Bakugo was gonna join.
yeah,
Join them, yeah.
Just because
Which
of his
definitely
attitude,
shocked
innit?
me.
yeah,
But
exactly.
then it was like it kind of cemented. You kind of cemented his will. So yeah, so you know.
Yeah, no, it's cool, it's fine. Yeah, exactly, because he does have somewhat villain tendencies, so And so on top of that, there's also, in season 3, there's also All Might revealing to the world that, he's not who he used to be in terms of his strength. There's also Deku versus Bakugo, which is one of the best fights in the whole show, in my opinion, so far. And you have One for All being revealed to Bakugo, and by now the audience, you guys should know, so that was season 3. So, One for All is revealed to Bakugo, and in that moment, Bakugo has an emotional point where he reveals how he feels weak for having to be rescued, and that's a huge revelation for Bakugo, opening up like that. And in that moment also, you have Deku and Bakugo revealing how they really feel towards each other, and they come to establish more of a bond, or a bond in general. And that was also a big moment. And then by the end of season 3, you have the introduction of Mirio Togata, aka Lemillion, and I think he's great. So, that's my reason for why season 3 is the best season.
I think season 3 is an excellent season, but I went with season 2 being my favourite season, simply because I'm a sucker for competitions, man. And you got the sports festival when Deku is finally using his abilities, finally trying to get used to his abilities and coming to. He's trying to show that why he should be the number one hero, And during that festival, you got Metal versus the Rock guy.
Hiroshima.
Yeah, there we go. Hiroshima. You got them two, and then they draw, and then they fight again. And then I'm not even gonna spoil that just in case a couple of people ain't watched there. But that fight was sick. Even before that, you had the little competition where they were all like sitting on top of each other, trying to get the numbers off of each other. I thought them moments were sick. And then you had Todoroki versus Becky. That fucking fight. You know what I'm saying? That fight, and then even they started getting into the backstory for Shoto. Like, if you didn't know, like, Shoto, when he first appeared anyway, was definitely my favourite character. There's still some ironing out to do, but he was definitely my favourite character. So getting into his backstory with his father and Endeavour, and how deep I think their story is, and it's going to be, that was too sick. And you also had Todoroki versus Bakugo as well. I thought that was a sick fight. And let's be real, fam, one of the realest villains in anime, man like Stain, fam.
Yeah.
The introduction of man like Stain, tell me he wasn't a G, you get? And then even his whole moment, him getting involved with the League of Villains, technically shafting him, all of that was just really cool. And you also had the internship. And Gran Torino was, Gran Torino, my guy. And then I think at the end of that season, you had the reveal of One for All. So, man, that season was cold. I really do like season 3 after Nonsense to gone through it, but I'll stick with season 2. I think it had the sickest moments. What do you think?
That's, first off, I think it's crazy how all three of us have different favourite seasons.
Yeah.
So,
that's a lot for the world of My Hero.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even though I'll say what my favorite one was, but I was tied between both of them, and I would have said, I could have said season 2 as well, but yeah, my favorite My Hero Academia season was season 4, simply because of one thing. I'm a sucker for fight scenes, and the whole overhaul arc I think was crazy. I think the fight with Lemillion and Overhaul, and then the fight with Deku and Overhaul when Deku went Super Saiyan, I think that was just insane. Like, I think Overhaul was represented well as a villain. He questioned the meaning of a hero and then showed the darker side of hero society. And I think Overhaul was just a well-rounded villain. And yeah, the fight scene when Deku went Super Saiyan, like, that was crazy. And like, I think the whole Overhaul arc here was worth seeing Eri smile at the end.
Yeah, 100.
Yeah, definitely. Season 4, definitely. And I know that, like, some people might argue that the whole, or for me personally, I think that the Gentle arc was a bit rubbish, and Like there was just some things that kind of let it down a little bit, but yeah, I think that Lemillion, when Lemillion lost his powers or lost his quirk, sorry, it just everything else,
Heartbreaking.
yeah, melted away, man. The feelings I felt during that arc was just crazy. The season 4 definitely my favorite season.
Yeah,
And
that is.
also in season 2, yeah, you had the beef, All Might versus Bakugo and Midoriya. That was fucking
Mm,
Bakugo, and they had to work together.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah,
that was a
nice.
good
So,
moment. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. It would be between season 2 and season 4 for me, but I think season 4 takes it.
But yeah,
so I think it speaks a lot to how the structure of My Hero is.
yeah,
You know?
Hmm.
yeah. So yeah, Ash Ackerman. Hopefully that answers your question. Now we have the voice message from Ryder.
Hey, I've only found your podcasts recently through the ad on Instagram, but ever since I started listening to the first 2 episodes, I've been hooked because I love listening to people's opinions if they've given valid information, and I love being able to connect with them because then you get to see someone else's viewpoints on things, and especially on anime because there's so many different viewpoints, and I just love it. So sorry for dragging on, but it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks Ryder for that. That honestly meant a lot because you went out of your way to send us that. Thank you. You didn't have to do that, and you did. Hearing stuff like that is what makes what we're doing sort of worthwhile. Sounds corny, but it's true. So thank you for that message. That honestly meant a lot.
We got
Yeah,
for the
whatever.
message. Very motivated. We will be looking forward to hearing from you again. If you have any other questions to ask, feel free. And we'll try and include them in future episodes.
This is the first episode I've been a part of, but it's nice to see that these guys have been making an impact on you. I think it's really dope to hear.
So we're really grateful to the UAO students. Thanks. And on Instagram stories, we asked the question, what character in anime would you want to have a conversation with and why? We're going to share with you a couple of those answers. The first one is from Demi Rose Grayson, and it reads Bakugo or Kirishima because I have someone to vent to and let out all my anger. Or Aizawa Sensei. So she's saying she'd want to talk to Aizawa Sensei, Bakugo, or Kirishima.
Those are cool characters. I cannot lie to you. Proper cool characters.
Yeah, and the next one is from Egg Drunk Draws. He says, I want to have a conversation with Season 2 Kaneki to reassure and comfort him. And that's Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul, just in case anybody doesn't know. Yeah, is anybody familiar with like Tokyo Ghoul?
Tokyo Ghoul is one of my favorites, definitely. And Kaneki, season two Kaneki, can't tell you I remember him too much, but so I can see why you'd want to talk to him and tell him everything.
Yeah,
But would he sit down and listen to you is the thing.
yeah.
It's the question now that I'd have, like, yeah, at that time his mind is in a whole different place, so would you sit down and talk? That was a very interesting one. We didn't see that one coming, but yeah, Kenichi's awesome character.
And final one that we're gonna mention is from Whack_Williams05. They say Naruto Uzumaki, he has been through so much and he has such a strong willpower. Agreed. Like, yeah, he really does. I mean, Naruto is one of the most inspirational anime characters I've ever seen, personally.
It's
I
like everything he's gone through could be
yeah,
very relatable to
yeah.
a lot of people. And straight up, when you see someone like that, you can not just if he's someone you love to follow, you know, like him being like a Kage or chasing a dream of a Kage is so fitting because you wouldn't mind him leading you because he could take so much from his personality. Yeah, Naruto would be a great character to encounter. You'd never want to be left behind by Naruto. You'd want to always stay by his side or grind as hard as he's grinding.
Yeah, so in terms of our own answers to that, I personally would want to talk to Itachi Itachi, and
God took it right out of my mouth. He took it right out of my mouth. Oh my days! I thought I had a sick one.
no, listen. Obviously, we can still say this. I mean, we can still say it. But Itachi, because when they had that backstory right at the end of Naruto, when you saw the memories of Itachi through Sasuke, right at the end of the series, that to me was like, Itachi's backstory is something else. Itachi was yeah, he's one of those characters that's just one of the greats, and it's been through so much and
100%.
sees the world in a different way. So that's mine.
And that was also yours, Aztec. Was it Itachi?
Yeah.
Do you have a reason why you'd meet Itachi? Is it similar to Unknowns or?
It's literally the same reason. Like, I just feel like Itachi's been through so much, and it would be nice to, I don't know, just hear his thought process and his thinking behind it all.
Itachi, I feel like Itachi would be a scary conversation, man. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it would be hard to talk to Itachi. I don't know why. Following the Naruto path, I did have a joke one, but I changed my mind right now. And mine would actually be Jiraiya.
Hey.
I'd actually love to spend a day with Jiraiya.
Yo.
That'd just be too. I think it would just be too funny. Funny while he's writing his book, make out book. Are you done? I'll go get research with him. Yeah, but definitely, I'll be chatting to Jiraiya. I think it would just be a good time. Him or Master Roshi, spend time with them two, bro. They just make me laugh.
The pervy sages, basically.
Yeah, there we go.
And the thing is, though, with Jiraiya, you can have a deep conversation with him as well, because he's a deep guy.
You can take it that way. And I'm supposing with Master Roshi, you could as well, just because younger Master Roshi was on some shit.
Yeah.
That he's the creator of Kamehameha.
Yeah.
Kamehameha wave, so boy. If I need a technique, I got one right there, boy. And isn't Jiraiya, or is it Minato? He invented the Rasengan.
Yeah, it was Minato. Wait.
No,
that was Jiraiya.
No. It was Minato.
I think it's Minato still. It is Minato.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
No, it might not be like me, Jiraiya,
Oh, damn, how do we not know that? We should know this. This is weird.
That's an easy one, isn't it? Oh,
I'm pretty sure it was Minato, but Jiraiya taught Naruto, but it was Minato's jutsu.
Yeah, I think it was as well.
Minato is a legend. I think he's underrated. Yeah, I think that people don't give him enough credit. They don't feel they saw enough of him. But yeah, I thought he was great. So yeah, that's our answers to that question. And we've come to the end of our third podcast, which is season 2, episode 1. Thank you guys.
Big ups to everyone who has gotten this far into the podcast. If you did enjoy the podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe, and retweet, or just share the podcast if you did enjoy it, and share your opinions however way possible, and feel free to interact for our next podcast. Whenever we do post a poll on Instagram, be sure to look out for that. Hopefully you lot enjoyed, and big ups from Dice.
Thanks for having me, guys. I think it was dope, even though I was just talking rubbish. Big ups to everyone who made it this far. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Till next time.
And that, listeners, is the end of our podcast, season 2, episode 1. Feel free to follow the Unpopular Anime Opinion podcast on Instagram for additional content such as updates, shoutouts, and posts on various anime. Leave your opinions. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Also, subscribe to our YouTube for the full version of our podcasts, and tweet, retweet, and follow our Twitter for easy access to the links to our Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, and much more. Plus, if you have a question, UAO's Twitter is where you'll find the link to send in a voice message, and you could be featured in the upcoming podcast. And join our subreddit, which is UAO Podcast, where you'll be able to interact and discuss. Let's build this community. This is Unknown, Dicee, and Astek, signing off. Till next time, UAO students.